welcome to Guys Like Us, the podcast that may seem too sophisticated sometimes, which is really something we never wanted to be or don't think we are. We're probably the least sophisticated people that we know, actually. Exactly. So, hey guys, we are in our last live session from New York. Podcasting room here, so
It's
couldn't
great.
be any better.
It's been an awesome 6 days with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to me finally getting on that plane and leaving?
I'll miss you, but my liver won't. You know.
Yeah, but I think it's a dynamic. We're gonna break it next time. Next time we're gonna build in some detox days.
No, we're never gonna do that. That's the biggest. That's some insane bullshit. I mean, but you know what? It's always fun to, now we're gonna sound bougie again. It's nice to drink nice things with you and share them and eat well, and like
I fully agree.
That's a
fully
great
Steaks
bonding
yesterday
of a
were
friendship.
insane.
Yeah.
I brought something over from Austria.
What'd you bring again?
It was a fun wine. Yeah,
yeah, it was
a fun wine. It's called what's it called? Batonnage. Actually, yeah. It's a bit crazy. It's a bit stupid, but it is fun. It's a fun project of
California wine. It was delicious.
Of some winemakers in Austria who go into their vineyards and pick the ripest grapes very late in the year, and then they make this. But it's
beautiful.
It's not don't have to drink this every day, but every once in a while to splurge is kind of fun.
Yeah,
it's not
great.
like we followed it up.
No.
See, I opened this podcast.
By the way,
saying
you fell right into my trap. It's just so great.
I did fall in your trap, but it doesn't mean I know. It's because we heard feedback yesterday, right? I mean, from one listener, and you said I shouldn't listen to just one feedback, but that it's because we're talking about this and wine and stuff. It's just something we like, and it's something that we're into, but it doesn't mean anyone else has to, or that it's especially great or something that needs to be achieved at all.
100%.
Today's a beautiful day outside.
Amazing.
I mean,
you always leave on good days.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's hard to leave today.
I'd like to send you off.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful outside. And we are here in this office today to record an episode about success.
Okay.
I thought.
All right.
I mean, you're
really keen to go on this one. I love it.
Yeah, I was, because, I thought it was a nice kind of opening into our more professional topics. And, seeing you here in your professional context, sitting, with a jacket in that fancy office, right? I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is like, are you successful, Marc? Do you consider yourself successful?
Jeez, man. Well, can we start with the softball question? I believe that I have achieved some version of success. I feel somewhat successful. I don't feel like I've reached anywhere near my full potential, but I feel like, I have some success.
Why?
Well,
how do you measure that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the definitional measurement would be that, I sit on a leadership team of a company, so you've achieved, and I guess
it's just position.
Yeah. Well, it used to be, and it's changed for me too, but I would say success is how many people report to you, how much, acreage, or square kilometers do you have, and do you occupy in this space? Yes. How big is your rank and impact? All of that, right, is a big part of what are traditional measurements of success, right? So it's the higher up the ladder you go. So,
and that's fair enough. I mean, that's great. See, this is fun. I was just actually reminded of these. I was thinking of this. Obviously, there's external, if you want, measures or KPIs of success that we all know.
Yeah.
And whether we strive for them or not doesn't matter. I think, and some of them are almost. You think there's a difference culturally between the US and Europe?
Huge.
Yeah.
Oh, massive.
I mean, both. I think both very well. So
Okay. So
Sorry, the corner office and the acreage of the office made me think of that.
yeah,
Right. And in every TV show, that ever, every lawyer
the
show,
one, yeah,
whatever,
yeah. It's the
the
corner
corner office is
office, the
always a
high
thing, right?
floor,
The high
exactly.
floor. And that you don't have to that extent in Europe, for example.
No, I
And
mean,
maybe not anymore here either, but it's one of those cliche, almost Hollywoody things
totally.
that you all know.
And look, I mean, I can riff. I mean, there's a whole podcast series you could do on the difference between European and American business culture. But one thing I'd say, just a couple of observations. I mean, obviously, um, and I'll divide it in this simple framework. I think I used this before in another one around money and meaning. So in the US, for sure, the jobs, like so much of your meaning, your life meaning, is tied to what you do for a living and your work. And the more you're compensated, right? In theory, right? The idea is that the more meaning you feel, more purpose you achieve. Da 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 da. I find in Europe it's been remarkably separated. It's not that it's that it's not that it doesn't exist. Of course it does, right? But I think Europeans are much more protective about their work life. What work success is and what life success is. And I think that they've really kind of bifurcated the two, or more successful bifurcating the two.
Okay, but I don't know actually. I can't compare.
Where do you fall on the spectrum?
I think it also changed over time. I mean, and now we're, I think going towards what we had already discussed, and everyone who hasn't listened is welcome to tune into I think is our second episode that we did on the good life, right? And that's kind of like how do you balance, success? I think I guess in all other life areas, also with work, and I think very often, as you rightly so say, the work is the dominating one,
Totally.
but and then other software, etc. And I think we've discussed it at length there. And I don't want to go down that
No.
road again, because I think still within the definition of success in your job, there's lots of
So
things,
you're talking about
right?
professional
I was
success.
talking about professional success.
Got it.
And I think you already named a few things right there. And what is the measure, and how do you feel about it? And one is, as you said, what is your rank, your title, and everything that comes with it, right? Because in the end, right, whatever your office is or how many people you lead, that's all kind of like an offshoot of that, or a definition of that. Money is another one, which brings me to a question. Do you think, or do you feel, what if you were paid average, right? But you had a really big title, and really nice office and so on, or the other way around, you were and had lots of people report to you, or the
What
other
makes you say that? Keep going.
or the other way around, where you are like, you sit somewhere in your basement, but you make tons of money because, let's say, you're a trader and you're an absolute genius, and reaping in millions. Who what would be more, if you looked at them, what would feel more successful to you? Which career, which person, when you talked about them?
Obviously the first. But I think, professionally, I love leading and I love being inspiring. I love collaborating. I love working alongside brilliant minds and all those things. And as long as in the context we're having impact that's cool and worthwhile, then I'd rather have less and be in a great environment with great people, etc., than have more.
So we're kind of establishing success does not equal money.
Yeah, and I think we're if success equaled money, let's be clear, right? We have radically different jobs and pursuits than we had in the past. If we believe that,
That's true.
I would already, we would be competing hedge funds, and that was our underlying belief.
That is true. That's absolutely, and I agree with you. That I also, if I look at others and I look at their jobs, and then usually you also don't know what people are making, you kind of have an
Right.
idea, right?
Right.
And you look at what they do and the impact they have, and what they move, and it's actually probably more about the perceived level of power, I guess, you could call that, right? Or influence someone has. And that is, but they're all, finally enough, external measures, right, of
Yep.
success.
Yep.
And have they, I mean, when you think back of your, your first jobs, what was that a topic for you? Am I successful? Is it enough? What did you look at?
Look, I think earlier in my career, I was I was just in full learning mode. I never believed when my first job started is where I was going to end, And I started my job I had a very kick-ass job actually. It's actually kind of almost your version of version 1. So it was publishing was at Random House. I'm very happy to share with this part. I was making $30,000 a year in New York City in 2002.
Ouch.
It was like brutal. I still remember, because I was too proud to like ask my parents for money or whatever. I was living in somewhere in Hell's Kitchen, some shitty apartment, and I would, eat on certain days by whatever soups were on sale at the at the pharmacy because,
Wow.
also I was also so whenever I had soup, I had money for beers with friends, like
Oh,
this kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It wasn't like I was,
Starving.
but I
Yeah.
was definitely paycheck to paycheck. And the value proposition I think for those companies were like, hey, guess what? It's a fancy, amazing office. It's you get to work on books. And the very first book I worked on was the Da Vinci Code. It was crazy. And I never, I felt like I had a successful experience.
Did
And
you feel back then already?
I mean, I knew when the Da Vinci Code launched that like it's probably it for me, and it's hard for me to imagine a bigger book being part of a bigger book in my career.
Mm.
I already felt that. And um I don't even think there's been a bigger book. I mean, outside the Harry Potters, maybe one or two, like since that kind of like everyone remembers that kind of thing. And I but I never thought, oh, I just had a successful career. I just felt like, oh, that was an incredible experience. I got to be part of that story, and um, on to the next thing. I think when you started to feel success is when you're given more responsibility, and that's when you have people reporting to you, when you have a P&L to run, when you have when you feel the weight, the real implications to you fucking up, versus playing, you know, uh, uh, versus being a bit part player. So, to make it real, like at back to this Da Vinci Code example, I was a publicist, at that point in time. I was doing a rotation and, I was calling up uh, Christian radio people, in the Midwest saying, you're never going to believe there's this crazy book. And it's just like, Jesus of Mary. And it's a great story, and
Absolutely.
and the
Yeah.
book was launched the day the US invaded Iraq. But anyway, but like if I fucked that up, right? If I called no one, the book would have been fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it was okay. If I was responsible for launching that, different story, And
Yeah. I mean, I do. I remember that time of my career, my very first job, where being successful was very important to me. And I guess because you kind of go out of university and it starts with what kind of job you're getting, right? Are you working for? And then I went in consulting, and I didn't go into the big, the big McKinsey, Bain. They didn't want me back then, BCG. So I ended up, which was great, with KPMG, right? You have some friends of your school that go, have those bigger jobs, and they're already making 40% more, and you know what they're making because A, they tell you, fuckers. And B, right, that those are the best paying jobs. And I remember very vividly, I started in KPMG as actually as an intern, because I wanted to see how it was. And after 3 months, my partner back then, he asked me, listen, I mean, this intern thing is bullshit. Don't you want to start? Like,
right.
I say, yeah, okay. Then 3 months later, I
That's
already
cool.
had the feeling it wasn't enough. And I went out and I applied for other jobs, and I got a job at a local investment bank.
Okay.
And they would have paid me, I think, 50% more, basically, or 30% more.
Right.
So I went back and I really thought about this. And then this very senior partner, he took me in and he said, listen to me. Right. So he's like, you can either go and work for this shitty investment bank that no one knows outside of Vienna. I mean, they might pay you better and so on, or you stay with us. At least we're known worldwide. If you ever want to do an MBA or something, that's a great brand. And you have to think a little bit more long term, right? I mean, it's not what happens now, it's what happens over the next, 10, 15 years. I looked at him, it's like, to me, I mean, I did what he said, I stayed, and it was a great choice. But I just remember how very short term focused I was on on looking, around me and who went to university with me and what kind of jobs they had and what they did and how much responsibility, and didn't feel comfortable in that
Uh,
learning job in the beginning. While I had really good people around me, also
uh,
my dad back then, who were like, "Listen, this doesn't matter how much you make right now. It might not be much," and it wasn't, to be honest,
right.
right? Uh, but that's not what count. It was also about, I think it was 2-4 a month or something.
Mm.
That was my first salary.
Ouch. Hmm.
You didn't jump very far. But anyways, it was this very much. What's your title? So, are you a consultant or a senior consultant? I
Oh
mean,
my God.
you know, like
Yeah.
all these things, and that stayed like this for a while because you're also, I guess, in that the system is like this. Promotion, better title, more money.
You know,
You know,
well, if you have a boss, you want to rise up to when you barely have a boss, and I think, um, I feel like most people are kind of like that, or they want freedom, or some feeling of autonomy. I think that comes with success, because you have trust or you have a move forward. That's my feeling. I could be wrong. That's certainly what I want. But I think measurement, like the nice things about titles for people, and I totally understand why we have them, is because, yeah, they're nice benchmarks for skill set and reward, but also it's like it helps people know where they are, in this kind of existential type of thing called a career. Like what you've achieved, you've achieved something, right?
yes, but it is a comparison thing, right? At the end of the day, and I remember we had that was an interesting one, when I worked at Woman, we bought in, our, US affiliate, which, was kind of a merger. And then we thought of a worldwide title kind of system because we didn't have one. It was a startup that was 8 years old. So, we had titles left and right and front and center. And it was very important to the US to have certain titles, which we didn't do because VP, for example, we don't have that in Europe, so we didn't do it. I mean, by now we then had it in the end, but it was a big thing that we didn't have bigger titles for our US colleagues. And we somehow settled, I guess, somewhere in the middle of
Okay.
it. Um, but it was not a fight, but it was actually almost difficult to solve because he wanted unified, and it was exactly like this. We didn't want to give, the US different titles than Europe because then the Europeans would be, but why are they called like this? But they do the same job. It was like all about this.
Nightmare.
It's a nightmare, and it's actually almost like a no-win zone.
Well, it's
You
the
know,
it's the Maslow's hierarchy, rewards and recognition, right? It's and like how we need that in the top part and how essential that is to keep us motivated, to keep us engaged, to make us feel seen and all that. I'm fascinated by that story though, because I can imagine the mass confusion and also assurance, like the call for equity, right? Across
yes,
each of that. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And which is a very difficult one when you are looking at the same thing through different cultural lenses and experiences,
Right.
right?
That's right.
I mean,
100%.
so it well, I don't know. At one point, then I feel it didn't matter anymore. As soon as it's all settled and people understand, what is really connected to it. But it's something. It is
Mm.
something, and it is less when people look inside the company. It's more important when they look outside. And I understand because then you want to apply for your next job, and it's worth something that when you were a director or something like that.
Well, I have a question for you. When was the time in your career that you felt most successful? Was there a moment or a time?
Yes, I think it's when I became CEO of Woom. I think I felt most successful because it was always a dream of mine to do that job, and I always thought it would be great, and that's when I felt most successful. Probably wasn't though the best time of my career, to be honest, because it was hard. And it was lots of work and lots of different. It was brutal, but yes, that's when I felt most successful. I guess also when before that when I became partner, senior partner in BDO, that was also great. It was
Yeah.
quite young then,
Yeah.
my late 30s, and but it's again that right. It was more comparative as compared to others than did I love the job back then or did I make a killing? No, not really,
Mm.
right? I mean, I was making good money,
Yeah.
check,
Yeah.
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 Did I love it? No, actually, no,
Mm.
didn't love it
Mm.
so much. Lots of pressure, always selling. You know how it is, right? You never have enough, and if you have neither enough clients nor enough people, so it's either one of
Oh
those.
God,
So
what
that
a
was
nightmare.
somehow you know
Yeah,
that, right? So it was somehow tough, and that's why what I find interesting. We talked a lot of about a lot of external measures,
yeah.
and I think what's nice is I also agree with you. It's not money. Money is not the definition of success. It is obviously one. I think is obviously more is almost more career and these kind and the things that you actually others see, right? And that's a title, and it might be and so on. And then so if you scratched all of that, and it was a question my coach gave me right at the beginning of my sabbatical when I was about to reorient myself or think about what I would do next. And he was like, imagine there was no money and no recognition of any kind for what you do. How would you define success?
Repeat that again. No
Imagine there
money
was no money
and no
and no
recognition.
recognition, meaning no title, no
Right.
office,
Got it.
no
Got it.
no recognition. And no one would give a shit.
What would you do?
What would you do? Right. And also, exactly what would you do? And how would you define success then for you? When would you feel happy? Right. I mean, what is, you know,
Hmm. And do you have an answer?
no, I'm asking you.
Fucking asshole. I think the short answer to this is that I would be writing or bringing stories that I have in my crazy little brain more to life. And I was for context for those listening, I was a creative writing major. I used to love writing books, etc. Turns out, and obviously spent some time in the publishing industry, enough to know, God damn, that's a hard ass business, and I didn't want to be poor. And I would have been poor for a long time. And so I saw a job and an industry where I could still be creative and have big ideas and bring them to life in amazing ways, etc. But if you ask me, what's the thing I would love to spend more time and do most, it would be that.
Yeah. And why? Because it makes you feel.
I love bringing I like bringing ideas and things to. I hate this phrase, bringing them to life, but
Mm,
I like making shit, and I
yeah.
like, and it's funny, I've written a bunch of television pilots, etc., and I'm still in development hell with that. But the joy of like, oh, here's a story I have in my head, and then and connecting that to actually writing it and bringing it and fine tuning the dialogue, laughing at my own jokes, blah 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 blah, like sharing it with people, like, and they say get the feedback and say it's great, and then you go and I don't know, we're a storytelling species, so I feel like putting
Yeah,
things out there
my
move
first
people.
thought back then was I saw myself somewhere in the countryside maybe in a beautiful old farmhouse with a huge table, an open
Woodworking.
yeah, a little bit of woodworking, but more cooking, having people around,
Well, that's the outcome of my work.
you can
unless you
come.
want unless you want to open a restaurant,
You can
that's a whole
come.
other
You can
thing.
come. No, but it was that. It was about spending time with the people I love, with my kids running around,
Totally.
and all of this. I guess so. It became quite melancholic, bucolic kind of a view. But I thought the it's interesting then to go deeper and say, okay, why is that? What is it that you do that you like, right? Because the first thing is I think is we get a picture and we get get a thing, but then or an idea, but to go a bit deeper and say, okay, what does it make you feel? What is it that you do to really understand, what then could be something that we can do that makes us feel successful in a world where money matters because we just need income
Yeah,
to
yeah,
live, right? And there's
yeah.
some things
Unfortunately,
that
that's the case. Yeah.
yeah, that we want to afford and that we want to do, and that's life. I mean, tough luck. But I thought it was an interesting thought experiment to kind of get to the core of that.
It's a good one. It's funny. Like I have a close friend, and one and he's one of the great minds in robotics
Mm.
and AI here. And if he's listening, Anthony, you know who you are. And I'm always fascinated. And I mean this admirable. Like the joy. Like he's so clear about his purpose and his professional purpose. He is like, my life is dedicated to robotics. I think the future is about humans plus robotics, and robotics can help people, not just businesses. And that's what I'm dedicating my life to do. and I'm going to reject things that are meaningful. And the funny thing is that, back to, I was joking with Paul before we started recording, I love the German language to encapsulate, like feelings or emotions, and everyone knows like zeitgeist or Fremdschämen and this kind of thing. The joy of saying no to a big paycheck, because it's not, yeah, it, it's a big piece of it. Anyway, Anthony has told me stories where he's like, yeah, I turned down this offer. I've never seen a paycheck bigger than that in my life, but I said no, right? And he has like 3 or 4 of those stories. And not that he's successful as he is. Obviously, he's choosing his path, except but that clarity to like turn down something that he's like, this is deviating me, a deviation from what I'm here to do, or it's not the right manifestation of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great if you have that.
Yeah,
I find that
I would like to get to that one day.
Yeah, that is becoming a bit clear to me also when I think about it. Is like also in the internal measures, and we're not even going now into work-life balance and stuff, but in a sense, it's like, do I feel a sense of purpose? I had a conversation this morning with a former employee who's now in New York. Who's like, you know what, I'm doing a job right now, and I feel like I've helped a lot of very affluent, very rich companies to make more money off of consumers, and I kind of feel that's a bit soulless, and I want to do something with more purpose. That's one thing, right? Is the purpose. The other thing is, do I have fun doing what I do?
100%.
Right? Do I like what I'm doing, right? Or do I not like it? And I feel, let's say, if you do something that's totally outside of what you like doing or your comfort zone or your talents, it's hard to have any of the external success factors checked, like money and status, because I think you suck.
Right.
Usually at that. But it doesn't mean that, you can be successful, in your career and do things, but still do things that you actually don't really, really love or like, right? And actually, I think many people are like this. And would still say, I'm successful.
Don't you think most are?
Most, yes. Sorry, language
I've never.
problem.
I mean,
yes.
Let's put this. I've never met a happy warrior. Never in my life.
But that's crass.
I mean, I'm picking. No, I mean, I'm picking on them, right? A little bit, right?
I disagree,
but fine.
But okay.
And I'm not calling them out, saying like you made the wrong choice. Like God forbid. Like it's also a responsible choice. Success. Like you could say, like, hey, I have a talent. I have I'm good at negotiations and arbitration. Like it's an amazing way to feed my family, and
ties a little bit back to the the conversation we had on superpowers.
Yeah.
Right. In a sense. So I guess, right, if you really then find your superpower and you can act accordingly, then off you go. Right. I think then you're gonna feel the thing is just I think we're so wired to those external success measures that we don't quite have I don't think the sensory, the sensors anymore to actually feel those less tangible, less externally validated things like, I actually like what I'm doing. I like to get up in the morning. I think we do feel that when it gets so bad, right, that we don't like to get up in the morning anymore. And when we get close to, I don't know, burnouts, etc., pp, which we also all know by now is not about too much work, it's about by doing work that doesn't fill your cup.
I think if this podcast is designed to reframe for people how to think about success, or if we're just unpacking it ourselves, I mean, I think it should be like, I just want to be really clear, because I made a comment not knowing how to wears, and I'll stand by that. But I'm walking back. But I also want to acknowledge it's a fair choice to pursue careers like that are rewarding, at the very least financially. And I think we should be really real about trade-offs that people make, in pursuit of that. And partners at amazing law firms who are great people on the outside, like they're awesome, like I am pretty sure they don't like their job, but I'm also pretty sure they don't mind what they're bringing home, and they're okay with that kind of trade-off, and they're rising through that kind of success. I don't know if I'm bringing your conversation where you want to right now, but I just think it's worth naming. I think it's worth naming. And like we're in New York, right? You look at downtown, just full the financial capital of the world, roughly, right? And also it's legal capital. Like, I'm pretty sure most of those people aren't happy. You know? And this is me pontificating here, but like, I think they're happy with what they take, but are considered successful. And
So, and
that
I think
is
that's where
that's the
I'm
tension.
trying to go. So, I guess that, I mean, obviously, those external success measures, and
Yeah.
everyone who's listened to this is clear. I think that has no. I think it's very little. It doesn't carry you very far.
No.
It doesn't
That's
carry you very
no,
far,
no,
right?
no, no.
I mean, it's not like other than if it was like this, it's very successful. Usually, people that have a burnout are usually very successful. And the reason why the external success didn't carry them was because it's not enough. I think it's not enough, and that's a big one. So to me, and I want to ask this question, but I'm gonna answer it myself first. Is how the two big topics that are in my mind when I think about success is how we define it, and how do I define it for me personally? What is success?
Mhm.
And it's funny because if I kind of try to uh, take the money away and the recognition away, right, but stay in the same job, not go then in a dreamy land where I can make steak every night for my friends and drink wine, so that would be my dream. But it's not that where I do whatever I like to do, which is work with people, work on projects, work on companies, right? But it wouldn't be, no one would be there judging somehow my success by giving me a paycheck or by whatever, evaluating the company, blah blah blah. would How would then I feel? When would I feel successful? And to me, it would be if I achieve certain goals I set to myself for the business. I think we haven't talked about that. So you want to launch a new product, you launch that product. You want people to develop, you see them developing. That was always actually the feeling where I felt the most successful, like where I really felt joy coming up, when I saw that people rose to the occasion, they developed, they became, better professionals, but whatever. Those are the things. And I find it's worth identifying those when you go through your career, and saying, okay, those are the things that make me tick. Because I also think that when you follow those impulses, you will be successful also on the external merit piece, i.e. someone's going to pay you. That's number one, right? So that's really defining your internal KPIs, if you want, of success. And the second one is the concept of time.
Okay. Now we're getting interesting. Go for
Yeah,
it.
because in the concept of time, I think I was always also, in comparison to my group of friends or peers, rather successful, quick in my kind of career and so on. Also, fell on my face, then later. But then I also see people that 5-6 years ago, where I thought, okay, they're doing an okay job. They just stuck with it, and they rose to really nice positions within their companies. They're very successful financially, power wise, but also happy in what they do. And I wouldn't say they just set it out, but maybe they didn't look so much left and right, um, or were not concerned by that. And then just sometimes it compounds, it's also people that didn't jump around in companies but stayed at one, just put in the good work, and things happened for them, and happened very nicely. I think this feeling of wanting everything, and looking left and right, and I thought, oh damn, my best friend just got the senior in front of the manager or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't matter, because in a few years down the road, who gives a shit? It's about what you learn, who are you exposed to, what your network is. So I find, the people that look at those things rather than the titles, over time, that pays off. So that's my concept of time.
That's helpful. I agree. Look, I think if you find if what you're exceptional at, it goes back to, as you said, the superpower, like, aligns to, like, something that the market wants or needs, you're golden in a great way. Like, yeah, you just need to figure. But also, in the context of an organization in some way, like, I think, but you have to be seen by, your boss or leader to go do that. I think like, I'm pretty sure I moved pretty fast in this company to the leadership thing, and I think partly because I'm an extrovert in a culture of introverts, and like, okay, great. We need one of those to run business development, So like, it was a need that it was helping out. And I actually never, and I'm terrible at asking for raises or promotions or anything else like that. But, but I'm really good at following my passion. And I think that just tapped into something I love to do. Um, and still love to do, so it's a beautiful thing when those stars align, moving forward. Um, but I didn't chase the money, as much as like many of the other friends. As you're smiling because he's like, no, he didn't. But no, we did. But like, I mean, I wasn't my motivations for impact. I mean, otherwise I would have left, a long time ago. No, 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 no. But the time is interesting because I think, and let me add another dimension to this: courage. I actually think, like, we grow up, we're put in systems from education into, professional, right? And education system tells us, okay, you're smart enough, you go up a level, so like already ingrained, you're succeeded when you got high marks, when you pass on to the next grade, et cetera. So that behavior, that learned behavior, is ingrained in us, and we carry that forward, right, to our professional um, careers. It's the most natural thing in the world, right? You just want to, every few years you want to level up, you want to get a little more money, da, 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 da. And at the same time, I feel the way the professional systems are set up do not allow you to very often do not allow you, or very often do not allow you to take what you're actually remarkably great at and build a business around that, because they have a need, they need
Yeah,
this, they
yeah,
need,
they
they have
need
a
you to do
fractional,
X, Y,
it's a
Z. Yeah.
fractional piece of your skill set isn't required. Please do that in that slot, etc. And if you want to master that fractional slot and you can build a great career of it, that's great. But just know, and I think for us, like, be aware that's what that system is asking you to do. And I think the courage piece is where I was going. It's like, this is where the entrepreneurial part comes in, and others, like, for success. And that's what I really admire about many entrepreneurs is that um, the idea of, like, let me just connect with my passion, with what I love, right? And apply the metric of time, and hopefully some investors will see my passion, throw that in there, and it compounds, and then it'll come back, And maybe actually that's the answer, I would say. Like,
Yeah, I'm just thinking if we just said something so logical, and maybe we are just caught in that, you know, obviously you're successful in your job when you like what you're doing.
duh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
duh, exactly, duh. But maybe everyone should look through that lens at what they're doing right now. When you don't chase short-term, kind of rewards like a promotion or something just for the fuck of it, because it's not gonna get you anywhere. It's not gonna make you any happier, by the way. Nothing changes really. From a certain level of money on up to some crazy money, it also doesn't change anything. Usually, you just usually start spending more on the same stuff, right? I mean, you can always do nicer vacations, nicer cars, nicer wines, but at the end, it's the same shit, right?
Every
From a
morning.
yeah, from obviously from a very privileged level onwards, but still, that's where many people chase after that next promotion or that next job, and now I want to tie it back to the good life, because I don't think you can look at it individually, because I think, to me, if I look at it now, success, apart from, am I happy with my job, right, and what I'm doing, is also, does it allow me to, fill the cups in all the other sections of my life as well.
Mm.
For me, very important. Do I see my kids enough?
Yeah.
Yeah, do I have time for them? Do I have time for my hobbies? Do I have time for sports? Do I have time for my friends? Do I have time, for other things, for myself, to go in the woods alone and, look at the trees, basically. And so I guess, if you want to tie it back to, that is a job that gives you, as you said in the very beginning, time or freedom, or whatever you need to make those things happen.
I have a ex-mentor who's, I guess, maybe a mentor and a coach now, and he
Huh.
has this thing he likes to say, that work is life. People talk about work-life balance. I reject that notion. You're living and you're working. It's your life. Which is an interesting provocation. To and as a good coach, and I think, when we talked about success, at the very least, I think a successful career is also the one that allows you to have that level of I mean, we're defining it for ourselves here, right? In this
Yes.
moment, right? Like of course it's about some financial reward that's assumed, some sales status, you've had some type of impact, and you've also got to see your kids. You've got to go like spend meaningful time, with your friends, and create the balance, in between everything that's helpful, and how where the weight shift on that scale, is different for everyone. But that to me feels like a very solid equation to look at as
Yes.
for success.
And the more you let go of what is an external validation, the better it is. Because actually no one gives,
But I do want to close with, we got some photos yesterday, photographer, used to work here. And, he left, to pursue, he's like, you know what, actually, like, I'm a decent strategist, but I'm an even better photographer.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
That's like I'll do, and I don't know. There's something just you could see the passion yesterday. You could see the talent, super clear.
Man, I mean, it's a perfect segue also because he was my Terminator.
Yeah,
I was calling him out as the Terminator because he absolutely crushed it yesterday in our photos. I mean, we did a photo shoot yesterday, and you'll probably see it very soon, or hopefully see it very soon in our podcast artwork. And it was super fun, and you could see the passion, the talent. Terminated that.
Cheers, David
Full
Dini.
on, David Dini.
Yeah,
amazing,
exactly,
amazing. Do you have any other input on Terminators? Anything happened that you would like to call out?
Gosh, man, I think I need to pass. Like we've been
we've been talking so much.
Talking so much about that stuff.
I also have to say
the
last 24 hours didn't. I mean, the biggest idiot in the last 24 hours was myself again. I don't remember what I did, but I'm sure I did something stupid. So,
well, look.
It's idiot-free. I had an idiot-free day.
An idiot-free day is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But hey, listen, what a fun 6 days it was to record with you live
Indeed.
in person. Hopefully
we're going to go back to remote and all the fun of remote timing and me being, too tired, you not being in the evening mood yet. It's really not easy. I mean, it's not a joke, the 6-hour time difference.
It's not.
To find the same also kind of state of mind and kind of like vibe that you're in, right?
I agree.
That I find is
well,
the biggest
that's
one.
that's why we always started with drinks back then. I think it helped.
Yeah, which is also difficult because it was like 3 in the afternoon for you, which frankly in an office is quite a that's the definition of success. That you can go around in your office with a glass of wine and drink.
Exactly.
And me, maybe 9 p.m. sometimes was already too late actually to get.
Well, listen, we're gonna get. We're gonna go back, separate a little bit. Maybe we'll come back again once more before the end of the year at least.
That'd be awesome.
We'll figure it out. But thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. See you soon.